the clock is ticking. Italy says NATO must decide within 24 hours whether to unleash troops if Russia dares to strike again. A NATO-light security pact for Ukraine is on the table, but Washington wants Europe to carry the weight. As Russian drones fall in Poland and missiles rain on Kyiv, the question is stark. Will allies fight or falter when the test comes? Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has reportedly proposed a post-war security guarantee that would require Ukraine's allies to decide within 24 hours of a renewed Russian attack whether or not to commit troops. According to a Bloomberg report, sources familiar with the discussions said European leaders and other Ukrainian allies have been accelerating talks on security guarantees for Kyiv in the wake of US President Donald Trump's Alaska summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin. NATO military leaders met virtually on August 20th to discuss security support. Sources told Bloomberg that Meloni is backing a plan that is similar to NATO's Article 5 Collective Defense Clause. However, the proposal does not include Ukraine's membership in NATO. The alliance's collective defense principle enshrined in Article 5 commits member nations to provide military support to any other member state in the event of an attack. Meloni first brought up the idea of extending Article 5 protections to Kyiv without a NATO invitation in March 2025. It's among an array of options being fleshed out as European leaders leverage momentum after Trump agreed to back security guarantees for the war-battered nation. The Italian plan recognizes that NATO membership for Ukraine is off the table, but would offer a mechanism for collective assistance as the next best option, according to people familiar with the deliberations. Sources told Bloomberg that while the NATO-light option would fall well short of the military alliance's collective defense pledge in Article 5 of the NATO Charter, it would commit nations that have signed bilateral agreements with Ukraine to confer quickly on a response in case of attack. The options would then include providing Kyiv with rapid and sustained defense support, economic assistance, bolstering the Ukrainian military, as well as imposing sanctions on Russia. Meanwhile, Pentagon's top policy official Elbridge Colby told a small group of allies that the US plans to play a minimal role in any Ukraine security guarantees, one of the clearest signs yet that Europe will need to shoulder the burden of keeping lasting peace in Kyiv. The comments from Elbridge Colby, the Defense Under-Secretary for Policy, came in response to questions from European military leaders in a huddle led by Joint Chiefs Chair General Dan Kane. Politico reported, citing a European official, that defense chiefs from the United Kingdom, France, Germany and Finland pushed the US side to disclose what it would provide in troops and air assets to help Ukraine maintain a peace deal with Russia. The gathering and another hastily arranged meeting of NATO leaders on August 20th left allies increasingly concerned that Trump will rely on Europe to ensure a long-term peace once Russia ends its invasion, according to 6 American and European officials who, like others, were granted anonymity to discuss private conversations.
There's the dawning reality that Europe will make this happen on the ground. The US is not fully committed to anything.
The meetings, which occurred days after Trump and European leaders met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House on August 18th, underscore the massive task ahead for allies as they weigh plans to send a peacekeeping force to Ukraine and buy more American-made arms for Kyiv. Trump said on August 18th that he was ready to send US troops to Ukraine, but then backtracked the next day, suggesting instead that he was open to providing air support for European troops there. At the same time, the Kremlin said that any bilateral discussions about security guarantees between Kyiv and its respective partners in Europe and North America would have to include Moscow, or else risk becoming nothing more than a pipe dream for the West. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov menaced that seriously discussing security guarantees without the Russian Federation is a utopia a road to nowhere. This messaging was in stark contrast to what his boss Putin and Trump reportedly discussed at their summit in Alaska's Anchorage. At that meeting, Trump said he walked away with the understanding that while Ukraine joining NATO was off the table, the US and European countries were free to devise their own security guarantees with Kyiv. Polish officials said on August 20th that a Russian drone crashed overnight in a rural area of eastern Poland, describing the incident as a deliberate provocation amid international talks about ending the war in Ukraine. This is not the first time a Russian drone has crashed on the territory of a NATO member. Poland's Deputy Prime Minister and Defense Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz confirmed that the object, which fell into a cornfield near the village of Osony, was a Russian unmanned aerial vehicle. Osony is located in Lublin Voivodeship, a province that borders Ukraine and Belarus. Kosiniak-Kamysz said that Poland's defense ministry had briefed top military commanders, as well as security and foreign affairs officials, and that Poland's allies had been informed. Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski said the incident was a fresh violation of Polish airspace from the east and announced that Warsaw would issue a diplomatic protest. Meanwhile, Russia launched a wave of missiles and drones targeting cities across Ukraine overnight on August 21st, injuring 12 and sparking fires at a large electronics plant in Mukachevo, with damage also reported in other cities, including Lviv. Ukraine's Air Force said on August 21st that Russia used 574 drones and 40 missiles in overnight attacks on the country. The Air Force said it shot down 546 drones and 31 missiles, recording hits at 11 locations and debris falling at 3 locations. The attack comes as Moscow continues to unleash daily attacks on Ukrainian civilians, despite the leader-level peace talks. Explosions were reportedly heard in Rivne Oblast overnight on August 21st as Russia launched bombers and drones, prompting an air raid alert to be issued across all of Ukraine. 3 explosions were heard in Rivne Oblast as Russian MiG-30. 1 fighter jets capable of launching Kinzhal ballistic missiles reportedly took off. In a separate incident, Russian Telegram news channel Astra reported that a fire broke out at the Novoshakhtinsk oil refinery in Russia's Rostov Oblast after an overnight drone strike. The city of Novoshakhtinsk lies around 10 kilometers from the Russo-Ukrainian border and over 200 kilometers from the front line. Residents said at least 5 explosions were heard over the city of Novoshakhtinsk during the drone attack. Drones hit the local refinery, causing a large fire.